Welcome to the ultimate deep dive into the legend of the werewolf, a creature that has haunted humanity's imagination for centuries. From ancient myths to modern-day horror films, the werewolf has left its mark in countless cultures and stories. This video will take you through the origins of the werewolf in different cultures, terrifying rural tales, the fear and paranoia surrounding this legendary beast, and its role in Gothic literature and modern media. But first, let's set the stage. Why do werewolves continue to capture our imagination? The werewolf is a fascinating representation of our fears of losing control, transforming into something monstrous and struggling between humanity and bestial instinct. Unlike vampires or ghosts, which symbolize the unknown, the werewolf represents a terrifying change from within. From folklore to horror movies, let's explore how the werewolf became a global legend. If you love mythology, horror, and supernatural creatures, make sure to hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into the unknown. Now let's begin. Origins of the werewolf, ancient myths and global legends. The concept of humans transforming into wolves dates back thousands of years and is present in various cultures. The werewolf legend is one of the most ancient and widespread myths in human history. Almost every culture has a story of a human becoming a wolf or some kind of hybrid creature, either as a punishment, a curse, or a gift from the gods. Greek mythology. The tale of Lycans is one of the most famous werewolf legends in history. According to Ovid's Metamorphoses, Lycans was a king of Arcadia who doubted the divinity of Zeus. To test Zeus, he served the god a meal made from human flesh. Outraged, Zeus punished Lycans by transforming him into a wolf, stripping him of his humanity and condemning him to roam the wilderness as a beast. This story may have influenced later werewolf legends in Europe. Roman beliefs. The ancient Romans also had their own stories of men turning into wolves. The historian Pliny the Elder wrote about men who could transform into wolves for several years before regaining their human form. There were also the Versipelles, meaning turnskin, who were believed to be humans capable of changing their shape at will. Norse mythology. The Vikings had many stories of warriors with the ability to transform into wolves or wear wolf pelts to gain superhuman strength. The Ulfhednar were Norse warriors who fought in a berserk state, channeling the power of wolves. Unlike traditional werewolves, they were not cursed, but rather chosen warriors who could harness the animal's power. The saga of the Volsungs. One of the most famous werewolf stories in Norse mythology comes from this saga, where a father and son, Sigmund and Sinfjotli, find two enchanted wolf pelts that allow them to transform into wolves for 10 days. During their time as wolves, they give in to bloodlust and kill many men before removing the pelts and returning to their human forms. Celtic myths. In Ireland and Scotland, the idea of werewolves was tied to magical shapeshifting. The Fianna warriors were sometimes said to have the ability to transform into wolves in battle. There were also legends of the Wolvers in Scotland, wolfmen who were not cursed or evil but lived in harmony with humans, offering fish to those in need. Slavic and Eastern European folklore. In Slavic mythology, the werewolf, or vukodlak, was feared as a creature that could shapeshift between human and wolf form. In some stories, these transformations happened as a punishment from God, while in others, dark magic or drinking from a wolf's paw print could turn a person into a werewolf. Many of these beliefs contributed to the European fear of lycanthropy during the Middle Ages. Medieval lycanthropy trials. Just as witches were persecuted, people accused of being werewolves were put on trial in Europe, particularly in France and Germany. The most famous case was that of Peter Stump, a German farmer who was executed in 1589 for allegedly practicing witchcraft and lycanthropy. His trial included confessions of cannibalism and transformation into a wolf. Though modern historians believe these were forced confessions obtained under torture. Native American lore. Among many indigenous tribes, there are stories of skinwalkers, powerful shamans who could transform into animals, including wolves. These beings were feared as dark sorcerers, capable of using their transformations to stalk and hunt humans. Some tribes viewed the wolf transformation as a spiritual connection, while others saw it as a curse. French and German folklore. The loup-garou is a European legend of men cursed to become wolves under the full moon, often as punishment for sins or dark magic. These stories led to mass hysteria in medieval Europe, where people were accused of being werewolves and executed. Brazilian and South American legends. The lobisomum legend suggests that the seventh son of a family is doomed to become a werewolf. In rural regions, tales of cursed men who transform into wolves and terrorize villages are still told today. Some variations of the legend say that the transformation happens every full moon, while others believe it occurs every Friday night after a curse is placed. As we can see, the idea of werewolves has existed in almost every part of the world. Each culture has its own version, shaped by fears, beliefs, and even historical events. But werewolves weren't just part of myths. They also played a major role in the superstitions and paranoia of medieval society. Tales from the countryside, the werewolf in rural legends. In remote areas, especially in Europe and Latin America, werewolf legends are deeply tied to superstitions and the fear of the unknown. In villages where nightfall meant the arrival of dangerous predators, stories of humans transforming into wolves served as cautionary tales. Eastern European legends. In Romania and Hungary, there were stories of men cursed to become werewolves after committing heinous crimes. These creatures were believed to attack livestock and even people during full moons, and the only way to stop them was with silver. Brazilian stories. In rural Brazil, many still believe in the lobisomum. Older generations tell tales of men who, after being cursed or bitten, transform into monstrous wolves under the full moon. These creatures are said to roam the countryside, attacking cattle and terrifying locals. Medieval trials and witch hunts. The fear of werewolves in medieval Europe was so intense that it led to real-world trials. Much like the Salem witch trials, people accused of lycanthropy were often executed in horrific ways, including burning at the stake. These stories not only added to the mystique of the werewolf, but also reflected deeper societal fears. Werewolves became a way to explain the unexplainable, whether it was missing livestock or gruesome murders. The wolf on screen, the werewolf in movies, TV, and games. Over time, werewolves have moved beyond folklore and mythology to become icons of cinema, TV, and video games. The creature has taken on many forms and interpretations, from terrifying monsters to tragic figures, even heroes. Werewolves in movies. Werewolves have been part of cinema since the early days of horror. The first major werewolf film was The Werewolf, 1913, a silent movie that is now considered lost. However, it was in 1941 that the werewolf truly gained an iconic face with The Wolfman, starring Lon Chaney Jr. This film established many of the modern werewolf myths, such as transformation under the full moon and vulnerability to silver. In the following decades, Hollywood reinvented the creature multiple times. Films like The Howling, 1981, and An American Werewolf in London, 1981, introduced groundbreaking practical effects for transformations, creating some of the most terrifying and memorable scenes in horror history. The Howling took a more visceral approach, while An American Werewolf in London blended horror with dark humor. In the 2000s, werewolves made a major comeback with films like Dog Soldiers, 2002, Van Helsing, 2004, and of course Underworld, 2003, which depicted an epic conflict between vampires and werewolves, now known as Lycans. Meanwhile, Twilight, 2008, introduced a more romanticized version of the werewolf, portraying them as protectors and rivals to vampires. Werewolves on TV. Television has also explored the werewolf myth in various series over the years. In the 1980s, the series Werewolf, 1987, followed a cursed man seeking a cure while being hunted. In the 1990s, Buffy the Vampire Slayer introduced the character Oz, a werewolf struggling to control his beastly instincts. In the 2010s, Teen Wolf, 2011, reinvented the concept for a young adult audience, blending action, romance, and supernatural mythology. The show was a huge success and expanded the werewolf's presence in pop culture. Another notable series was Penny Dreadful, which took a gothic and brutal approach to the werewolf legend with Ethan Chandler's character. More recently, series like The Witcher and Supernatural have kept the werewolf myth alive, adding new variations to the classic legend. Werewolves in games. Werewolves have also become iconic characters in video games. One of the earliest examples was Altered Beast, 1988, where players could transform into a powerful werewolf. In the modern era, werewolves have appeared in various games, such as The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, where players can become a werewolf and gain special abilities. Bloodborne took a Lovecraftian approach, featuring grotesque and terrifying werewolves as enemies. The Order, 1886, and Werewolf, The Apocalypse. Earthblood are more recent games that explore werewolf mythology in a cinematic and intense way. In horror games like Resident Evil 8 Village, werewolves played a central role as brutal and intimidating enemies. They remain some of the most iconic figures in gaming, whether as villains or protagonists. The werewolf has always been more than just a mindless beast. It represents some of our deepest fears, the fear of losing control, of becoming something unrecognizable. The legend of the werewolf persists because it touches on a primal instinct within us, the battle between civilization and savagery, between reason and rage. Throughout history, the myth has evolved, shifting from terrifying folklore to a powerful symbol in movies, TV, and games. But one thing has never changed: humanity's fascination with the idea of transforming into a creature of the night. And what about you? Do you believe in werewolves? Or perhaps you think that deep down, we all have a bit of the beast inside us? Leave a comment with your thoughts and your favorite werewolf story. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more content about myths, legends, and the supernatural. See you next time, and beware of the full moon.